there's quite a few people joining us now, so I think we can go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for this edition of IFB Group webinars, the topic for which is, of course, retrofitting and energy savings, in line with the Retrofit Tech series, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. First and foremost, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our phenomenal panel for joining us today, Mr. Ali Al-Jassim from ESCO, Mr. Graham Sims from RSB Dubai, Mr. Marcus Stromer from Siemens, Mr. Rajmohan Govindarjan from Armstrong Fluid Technology, and of course, our phenomenal moderator, Mr. Hassan Yunus from Griffin Consultants and Ashri Falcon. Now, I will give them all a few minutes to introduce themselves shortly, but first, just a few house rules, if you will, to go over to ensure that you have a good experience with us in this webinar today and you can make the most of all the functions the platform has to offer. Firstly, my name is Mahyar Ibrahimi. I'm the conference director at ACM Dubai, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. If at any point during this webinar you have any questions with the technical aspects regarding the Zoom platform, or you would like to know anything about our other upcoming webinars, you can use the Q&A function, which should be in the middle bottom of your screen. And you can message myself and my team directly, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Now, please do bear in mind that all the attendee microphones and webcams are disabled during this webinar, so you will only hear and see our panel. Of course, you will have some questions for this panel, which we will be aiming to raise to them in the last 20 minutes of the webinar. So if you have any questions, you can also use the Q&A function to raise these questions to the panelists. Just make sure you please mention who you would like the question asked to, if it's a specific panelist, if it's multiple panelists, or if you would like it asked to the entire panel, or of course myself and my team if it's a technical question, and we will do our best to either answer these directly or put them up to the panel in the last 20 minutes. Finally, a small favor to ask of everyone, we will have a short post-webinar survey for you that's going to pop up at the end of this webinar. Please do take the minute or so it will take to fill that out. It will go a long way in helping us improve this experience for you and give you exciting content for future editions. Now, without further ado, I'll pass things on to our phenomenal moderator for the day, Mr. Hassan Yunus. Hassan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mahyar. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you to our panelists. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Hassan Yunus. I'm the director and co-founder at Griffin Consultants. I'm also the Ashray Falcon Chapter president. I've been working in retrofits for a long time. And this year has been a different year with the COVID-19, and we're going to discuss a lot on the relationship of COVID-19 with economy and the retrofits section, and maybe look at what are the hurdles that ESCOs, super ESCOs, and program owners that are related to retrofits will be facing. I would like the panel to start introducing themselves. So Mr. Ali Jassim, if you can give us a minute on your background, your role with Ittihad ESCO, and everybody's familiar with you, but if you want to add anything, please do.
Just remember to unmute yourself, Mr. Ali.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Hassan, and thank you, Mahyar. My name is Ali Al-Jassim. I am the CEO of Ittihad Energy Services in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates. I'm also working with Emirates Green Building Council as a chairman. I'm honored to be among such panelists, such experience and experts in the ESCO market and the energy services and the green and renewable energy. I've been with Ittihad for quite some time. Part of the team with RSB, Dubai Supreme Council of Energy, the private sectors and energy services company, private sectors auditors, experts. Part of them are with us in the panel. Part of that team who drove the energy efficiency market in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates, and led by example the region and energy efficiency. Thank you. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Thank you very much. And I know that your responsibilities are growing. Now also you being the EGBC chairman, I'm sure you have a lot on your plate and not enough time maybe to cover all that. But I'm sure you're doing an excellent job and you'll continue doing so. Mr. Graham Sims, Executive Director of RSP Dubai, tell us a little bit on how you started with this business and the things that you've worked on that relates to retrofit market in general.
Thank you, Hassan. Good morning, everybody. So I'm the Executive Director at Dubai's Power and Water Regulator, the RSB. I guess the reason why I'm in this panel is that one of the things we do is we run an accreditation scheme for energy service companies and energy auditors. And those of you with very good eyesight might be able to see on the wall behind Ali Jassim, there is the so-called House of DSM, which describes Dubai's overall demand-side management program. And we, together with, he's nicely getting out of the way, we, together with Etihad, are responsible for leading the program within that strategy, which is looking at retrofitting Dubai's buildings. To give you a sense of scale, when the target was originally set, we were expecting to retrofit something along the lines of 30,000 buildings by 2030. And as of the end of 2019, we were actually almost halfway to achieving the annual electricity savings that are expected under that strategy. I mean, quite remarkable, actually, that we're only about 1/3 through the strategy and we're about halfway towards the electricity savings. From a personal point of view, I've been working at the RSB for nearly 9 years, but it's more than 20 years when I first came to the UAE to set up the similar body in Abu Dhabi, and then spent some time back in the UK.
Thanks, Graham. Rajmohan Govirandajan is the Manager of Building Systems and Solution at Armstrong Fluid Technology. Can you tell us more about your experience in retrofit and your experience in the UAE?
Yes, thanks, Hassan. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm in charge of energy upgrades and systems business for Armstrong in Middle East and Africa. And I've been with energy business for over 10 years. And we've been actively working since the ESCO business have been developed in the region. And I've been involved in many retrofit projects so far, and very successful, starting with the ESCOs first, but looking forward to have a bigger reach with all of the fraternity.
Thank you, Raj. Marcus, we have also Marcus Stromer with us on the panel. He's the Head of Regional Solutions and Services and also Senior Executive Vice President for Siemens Middle East. Marcus, on to you.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, in Siemens, I'm responsible for Regional Solutions and Services, formerly known as Building Technologies. But nowadays, it's all about smart cities, smart buildings, smart districts. Amongst that, also Expo 2020 Dubai, 2021, now we have to say, right? So a very broad spectrum. And we are also a company that was an early starter here in the ESCO market and received, thankfully, the registration. We have many successful projects. And I believe many customers are now happy that they started early, because the enabler was so far the tariff. And we have now a different enabler, and that's lack of cash flow or lack of income. So both enablers are actually driving the whole ESCO business forward. I believe we are still in the right space. And for these kind of investments, now the competition has been slightly reduced, because I will come to that later. But I'm very excited to be with you and to hear how you see the market from now and in the future.
Thank you, Marcus. So COVID-19, I think, has shook the very foundation on how we do almost everything in life. It's really redefining life as we know it. My question is to you, Ali. What is the effect of COVID-19 specifically on Etihad ESCO as a super ESCO, on the projects that were running, and the projects that were about to be signed, on the future projects, and also on the retrofitting market within the UAE or the GCC?
Thank you, Hassan. Now we are in a society, the UAE and Dubai, the government of the UAE, the first thing they said during pandemic and after pandemic, be positive. We are in a great country. And really, we are in a great country. During pandemic, Etihad ESCO and the ESCO market, although everybody was affected, but we were working from office, not proudly saying, however, we were with certain parameters, precautionary measures. We had key people who were going to office with permissions, of course, government permission, to make sure that the business continuity is there, to make sure that the relationship with the customers, clients, and others are still maintained. We were not at 100% working remotely, although we were following the government rules and regulations and instructions. However, we were making sure that the continuity and that string was being maintained with our stakeholders. During the sterilization period and during the pandemic, Etihad maintained, if you visit the website of Etihad, you will see during 3 months period, we still continued issuing tenders. We were continuing the relationship with our clients. We were in fact bringing business to the ESCO market. So it did not affect us that much, although it affected everybody. However, the impact was on Etihad, I would say, around 60% at the bottom line number. So, but we still have 6 months to recover that decrease. We can work very hard to make up that 60%.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Graham, you've done a survey with the ESCOs recently. Can you give us your view around the world in the UAE? What do you think the effect of COVID-19 on the retrofit market?
All our accredited ESCOs a few weeks back. We wanted to understand just what was going on. It was clear from that survey. I mean, there was very strong unanimity on most of the questions we asked. So it was clear that all of the ESCOs were seeing impacts from COVID-19. Those impacts are both commercial and technical. So by technical, I mean, can you still access facilities where you're doing work? Are you facing restrictions on, your staff? Either staff can't get in the country, or staff might be quarantining and so on. Commercial impacts were equally prevalent. That's either projects being delayed or cancelled, or potentially having difficulty getting paid for existing projects. In terms of the scale of that impact, most companies were saying it was going to lead to a reduction compared to what they were expecting for 2020 of at least 20% of revenue. And I think actually 20% plus was the highest figure we allowed them to choose. So quite exactly what those impacts were is difficult to gauge. So you've got to assume that we're talking about very, very significant impacts. Positively, a significant minority saw things returning to normal this year, so quite a rapid bounce back. And virtually all the other companies saw 2021 as the year for recovery. So only a small minority thought that we would be, facing the situation, or they'd be facing a situation of reduced activity beyond the end of 2021. So a very sharp but relatively short sort of shock to their business activity was the message they gave us.
Do you think if they took the survey now compared to when they took it, because when that survey was done, it was a little bit, we were unsure when things will start picking up again. Do you think that the answers would change? Because I'm seeing a little bit of change nowadays. Like I've been around and I see some hotels are, have almost fully booked. Again, it's only staycations, let's say, but at least before, when you contact the hotel, they tell you, right now we have zero business. Don't talk to me about retrofits. But now I see that a lot of them are, having some occupancy, and there might be some change maybe in the answers. What do you think about that?
It's hard to say. I mean, I I think you might be right that the return to, let's call it normality in the UAE has been more rapid than people might have expected in terms of what's permitted by way of business activity. That said, against that, people may have underestimated just how damaging this period will be in terms of just taking cash out of the economy. So I wouldn't really like to guess what the net effect of all that will be. Maybe we'll consider rerunning the survey at some point. I don't think we want to try and do that, every few weeks. But it might be interesting to get a different perspective, say towards the end of the year, which is when we typically interact with the ESCOs anyway. So yeah, I can see anecdotally, there might be some reasons to think that there might be a more optimistic perspective out there just at the moment.
Thanks, Graham. Raj, from your perspective, the projects that you are working on, did you see any effects? Did this project stop? Did they continue? Tell us your perspective, please.
Yeah, we have faced a few challenges. Particularly the mobility of staff and access to the buildings were a problem in few of our ongoing sites. But we were fortunate to have remote connectivity to most of the equipment that we implemented, smart pumps and controls. So that aided us to solve most of the problem sitting remotely, or at least progress partly. So that's a positive side of it. And apart from that, I've been working in the industry for the last 4 or 5 years. And as you know, the projects, energy projects take a bit time to come to a concept stage. So the positive side is that most of the projects and work we have done is at maturing stage. And I see that as a positive note. As soon as the industry recovers, I think we will be able to kickstart at a much faster pace. Yeah, so that's the positive I found. Yes, there is issues, but as we all said, UAE is much faster to recover, and we get the positive spirit from all of the community that we work with.
Thanks, Raj. Marcus, I know that we've worked on a few projects together. What was the effect on Siemens?
None of the energy savings project was affected or is affected in any terms or any way of a suspension, or in fact, we got actually faster progress, and because the shutdown permits were much easier to get, and we didn't have, of course, any disturbance from airport to shopping mall to hotels to wherever we worked in. So actually we saw a simplification of the implementation, shortening of time scheduling aspect. And what I see now is we all have the resources, we are all ready to go to continue. And saving projects are lasting returns, lasting reoccurring savings. It's actually the best bet right now in the market, because any fancy new business idea has a very high risk of not flying. But what we offer really brings something into the bottom line, keeps money in the pocket. Right? So it's the best ever investment. And that would help us as an industry, not only speaking for Siemens, but I think for all ESCOs, we need a stimulus that the expertise that we all have here in the country, and we are the leader here in the region, collectively the UAE is the furthest developed in this. Let's not drain or allow that our resources that we have accumulated here in the country are draining to somewhere else. It's the best ever investment, and we need a slight stimulus that the projects go on, because they make absolute sense. And I would also like to say the energy saving projects have always been kind of a locomotive in front of lots of other new technologies that entered buildings. It could be IoT sensors and so on, or lighting retrofit. It was all done in one go with the energy saving project. And right now we have the need to return safely to our offices, and we need to give confidence to the people. So again, energy saving is the locomotive, but maybe we have a few more wagons behind the locomotive, which could be additional filtration or any kind of UV elimination of pathogens or bipolar ionization, active technologies, so that we are not only relying on fresh air, increasing the fresh air circulation, because we are now entering the hottest months of the year, and it will really burn holes in our pockets if we keep a building safe by simply cooling hot outside air as much as we can. We need to put it in one block. So energy saving plus filtration and also kind of sanitization of the office, a retrofit on the whole HVAC system. That would actually be a super stimulus right now and keep us all busy. That would be my greatest wish. Yeah.
Thanks, Marcus. You've touched on a very important point, which is the change, which will change the way we do retrofits and we do designs for buildings. I've been very active with ASHRAE with their new set of documents to look into reopening buildings. So when you reopen buildings, what are the things that need to be looked at? Plus, trying to mitigate any risks. Now, the risk of COVID-19 being airborne is not very high, but there's also no final conclusion that it cannot be transferred. So we are taking some precautions, and there are some guidances that have been published, like you mentioned, better filtration, using maybe UV lights or other technologies that can deactivate these viruses instead of just using high dilution and bringing a big quantity of outside air. Could be a combination of all these technologies. But yeah, I think we should look into that aspect. And I feel in some of the projects that I've looked at, when it came to retrofits, the indoor air quality part is not really tackled. It's more of, okay, it was not great before, let's keep it the same. I mean, it wasn't a problem, but now it became very obvious. And I think in the future, we have to work together. Energy and indoor environmental quality should go hand in hand in a better way. I mean, in some projects it was there, but I think in future we should look into that. Thanks, Marcus, for that. Now, Mr. Ali, going back to to you, and a very important question on measurement and verification. These months where hotels were almost closed, if you had a project with a hotel or an office building or was completely closed, and you come back to the client telling them, well, we saved you 70% of your energy, they're not going to be very accepting of that. They tell you, well, we almost shut down the building, should have been zero. So in your current projects, how are you handling that aspect?
Well, of course, during the 3 months, it's a special time where MMV can be I would say away from the normal formula that we use, because there was no use. Some of the facilities were shut down, so their I would say their energy consumption were very much close to zero. However, as you know, also some government entities who are the majority of our customers, they keep the air conditioning on, they keep some of the consuming energy equipments on during night period. Yeah, so you cannot, there is no specific formula that will measure how much, but there will be a definite decrease in the energy consumption, which will be very evident in the energy bill, electricity bill and water bill. Of course, we need to find the right way and formula to be fair. Now, as you know, you are much more expert among all of us in this. During this time, you will give your report. However, if the project was during construction time, then already the client will benefit automatically, which was an extra benefit for him. But yes, but if the facility is under O&M, we will do as all other businesses. Yeah, I think the best solution will be, and I think to my opinion, is to extend the contract for another 3 months, where we can show that saving is continuous for another 3 months to recover this 3 months gap and put it at the end of the contract. That's one way of doing it. There are, of course, other ways where experts can also give their opinions and ideas.
Thanks, Ali. I think makes sense. If it's only a short period of time, why not extend the contract, and instead of going into back and forth discussion that will last maybe for 2 years to be settled.
Exactly.
Thank you for that. Graham, RSB, in the RSB MNV protocol, there's it mentions that you can go back to RSB, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you have any kind of disputes. Did you ever face any disputes in MNV in general, and what do you think about the effect of the COVID-19 and MNV? And please let me just add that whoever is attending, can you please send your questions to the chat box? Then we're going to have maybe 15 minutes at the end where these questions will be answered by our panelists. On to you, Graham.
Thank you. You're right. We built into the standard contracts that we developed alongside the accreditation scheme the possibility for us to be asked to settle technical disputes. The motivation for that was we were hearing that dispute resolution is often bedevils ESCO contracts. You know, there's typically arbitration provisions and it's very expensive. So we identified a class of dispute that had to be purely technical in nature. There was a limit to their value, and it was open to the contracting parties to say, we'll make the RSB essentially the body to whom you appeal if there's a dispute. In all the time we've been running the accreditation scheme, we've never had a dispute brought to us, which either means things are going very well and there are no disputes, or they're being resolved otherwise. So we don't have experience yet. I think listening to what Ali says, the COVID-19 experience is probably so far outside of what you would normally expect in a contract to have occurred. Of course, I know these contracts have to take account of occupancy changes, but they don't envisage full shutdown. So an approach which really just says, look, let's just suspend. I mean, I presume the ESCO will be able to demonstrate that the savings are being made. So they're not going to have a problem of savings not being achieved, but they may be willing to say to the client, you know, we're not going to try and claim those as true savings. We recognize this is a truly exceptional circumstance. So extending the M&V period to cover what is probably, you know, may well only be a period of about 3 months during which lockdown was so severe that you can't really, you know, draw any proper conclusions about M&V. That seems entirely sensible to me.
Thank you, Graham. I think looking at the options from the IPMVP, option A would be the best case scenario, because it really doesn't look into, let's say for chillers, let's say loads. You can just assume the load or use a certain load rather than actually checking what was the load. So option A from IPMVP could be something. It's actually one of the projects I worked with Marcus on. That was the option that was used. So Marcus, what do you think about the project that you've been working on? What is the effect in terms of M&V? What did you decide with your clients on the way forward?
Yeah, it always depends the maturity of the client, right? And mathematically, you can actually reconstruct, and there are models. Of course, we are also waiting what the EVO or the efficiency valuation organization is going to release in terms of guidelines, how to follow such an area or prone for disputes. But if both sides are very mature in understanding measurement and verification, and we follow the guidelines, I believe we will actually amicably resolve. Yeah. If there is a lack of understanding how those models work, of course there is a potential for conflict. But we are geared up. We are preparing ourselves to explain to clients how these models can anticipate or reconstruct or mathematically prove, and it must be fair to both sides, because it cannot be that savings due to lower load out of this crisis are getting to the credit of the ESCO and harm the client. There must be a fair middle ground. Yeah. So far, no effect. So far, no complaint. But we anticipate that will be a possibility, a likelihood, a high likelihood of conflict.
Thanks, Marcus. Actually, we at ESCO, I mean, Takati is there's a CMVP course next week. So anyone of the attendees that really want to know more on M&V, they can attend the next week's CMVP course. Actually, today I was giving the CEM course in the morning, and we had almost 18 attendees. So I think, you know, the ESCO companies and the energy auditors are still spending money, and they still believe in energy efficiency, because we normally have around, maybe depends, between 20 and 20 participants. This time we had around 18. We're doing it online for the first time. So it means that at least people still believe in energy efficiency. They're sending their people to learn more about that. Raj, you want to add any points on this particular the M&V issue? Do you do that, or normally under the contractor? How do we do stuff with Armstrong when it comes to M&V?
Yeah, when it comes to Armstrong, we have, as I said, connected equipment, and we monitor the equipment online with active performance management. So, so we have profile of equipment for the last few months or year. So yes, the last 3 months have been an exception, but we can approach it as per the option A that we discussed. I look at the future, and COVID's going to still pose a different occupancy rates in buildings. For many reasons. So and the ventilation rates can change, filtration can change, which can affect the load factor. So so what we have done in the past for a plant performance management commitment is we came up with 3 different scenarios of load profile and weather profile, and we said this is going to be a kilowatt per ton performance on an annual average. So it's more of the annual average performance, energy efficiency, rather than the energy bills. So yes, in that case, the customer was inclined, and I think that's where energy consultant's role comes in. We had a great energy consultant who can verify all of our calculations, and he can endorse that calculation along with the equipment performance commitments from the OEMs. Now that ensured the different scenarios, and actually future-proofed that particular project. So at a smaller scale, yes, we are monitoring and doing active performance management on our equipment, but there might be different situations which we can handle either by option A or by energy efficiency commitments, like I said. So these are some of the ideas and successes that we have had.
Indeed, this is always a risk especially when you're working with cooling plants. Like we were working actually on a plant, and it was feeding a hotel, and the hotel occupancy dropped drastically, and there was a reduction in bill. But again, for that particular project, we were also looking at the efficiency rather than the total bills, and looking at option A rather than option B or C. Yes, Mr.
Hassan, if I may add just quickly, most of the major projects where disputes could happen, I wouldn't call them dispute, I would call them disagreement, because at the end of the day, it's a disagreement over benefits, not a dispute over something that. So at the end of the day, MMV is the saving, whether you get a saving this much or that much. So that's a disagreement. But usually, Ittihad works as a barrier for both parties. Usually, the ESCO doesn't know that the client is complaining about the saving being achieved or not achieved. Ittihad is the barrier. And also, when the ESCO is not achieving the saving, or the client doesn't know, because Ittihad covers for both ESCO defends the ESCO in certain cases and looks after the benefit of the client. So because our projects are so developed in this unique structure, we are very close to non-disputes in Dubai and the UAE. Most of the other projects are directly dealt between the ESCO and the client, where disagreements are very minimal, I think. So that's why maybe I can add to Graham and the team this statement.
Thank you, Mr. Actually, I have another question for you. Since you're with us now, we have to ask you about the projects, current status of projects that ESCO has done, and any future upcoming projects for this year or next year. Can you give us some insight on what's happening with Dubai Super ESCO?
Thank you, Hassan. In fact, we during the 3 months period, we did not stop. You can visit our website, Etihad website, and look, you can see there were few tenders. Of course, lesser than last year, 2019, but we maintained the tenders going out to the market. Everyone can visit Etihad website and look at the tenders. I have a contract in front of me on my table to be signed. I would say the business of energy efficiency and retrofitting is good. It is a really excellent business. On top of that, we have added different activities to this to have a complete solution for our clients. We have added facility management services. We have added electromechanical services to our set of solutions where we can give a complete solution to the client, and the client feels safe working with Etihad and working with our ESCOs. So business growth is there. Projects are coming. We have to recover during the 6 months. We will help the ESCOs recover also along with us. We will not leave the ESCOs who were our partners during this time. And we have learned throughout the 5 years period so many things into projects where we developed capacity and knowledge. We don't want to let that go just easily. We need to create that business and that market, so we maintain the knowledge, we maintain the people, we maintain the expertise in this market, and we don't lose that treasure that we built. And I hope I answered your question. So the business is good. Yes, there are projects coming in. We have 2 big projects coming in, and I will announce it at Retrofitting, inshallah.
So Retrofit Tech will happen this year again.
Inshallah. Inshallah. That will prove that we have business.
And actually, yeah, I know you were busy because you kept us also busy with the MNV. So we were still visiting sites during this period and witnessing measurements or doing measurements. So I know for sure that ESCO did not stop working. Graham, we've worked on a project together, which is the Dubai labeling system. Can you give us an update on where is that project at the moment? And give us, I don't want to ask Mr. Ali again, give him all the questions, because I know that at the end of the day, ESCO is going to be handling the implementation of the project. But from a regulatory point of view or from a project point of view, where are we with the project?
Thanks, Hassan. Well, as you of course know, and some of the other people on the webinar may know, we completed the benchmarking exercise needed to set a rating scale, and that work was largely done about a year ago. This is probably one thing that has been impacted by COVID-19. So our ability to make progress to the next stage of the scheme has been impacted. So there is a bit of a delay, and what we want to do next is start a pilot phase for the scheme where we thoroughly test all the systems and processes and apply the benchmarks that we currently have to a set of buildings, and I think improve our understanding of building energy consumption through that phase. So we're behind where we hope to be, perhaps inevitably, and I guess this is something that will is probably going to get pushed back to early next year rather than something that we hoped we could have kicked off in the course of 2020. But it's clear there's still an appetite for this. So every time it gets discussed, people are keen to see it develop. So that hasn't changed. That hasn't gone away. and for some of the reasons we've been discussing, indeed, may be seen as even more important in future.
Thanks, Graham. I think I was thinking maybe we can run a survey and gather some data for the same buildings and see the effect of those 3 months on energy consumption. I actually contacted few clients of us to compare energy consumption, because I think in terms of residential, the consumption will grow higher because people are at home, and actually this gives it's a good market for ESCOs now, because the residential sector has probably reduced in rent, so the cost of running cost of energy became a big portion. So I think the residential could be something that we look at as ESCOs, energy auditors, or the whole energy market. Let me ask Marcus on digitalization. What are the new technologies that Siemens has? Anything that you want to add in terms of how to improve this whole process? Because we always face issues and bottlenecks when we collect data.
Thank you. Very interesting question. You hit the nail on its head, because from the, let's say, thousands of customers we have here and neighboring countries, we always had a hard time to convince to go on remote digital servicing, and COVID has kind of taken out the brakes. We have seen a very steep increase in the willingness and the number of connections coming back to our operations center. So we actually in our center can completely monitor the behavior and KPIs of the building. The crisis, so to say, enabled the flow of data, or kind of let the guard down and let the building owners be faster with that decision, but they were laboring in the past for far too long. This opens a lot more data, and out of the data which we analyze, we can also generate improvement measures. So I see a strong willingness towards digital services, cloud-based services as well. That brings me to another topic, which is a rise in data center load. Besides also data center projects, whole businesses will migrate from physical to virtual, and that puts us, puts the current data centers under stress, and it reflects in energy consumption. You might not think how direct this effect is, but it is. And the next big targets after maybe optimizing hotels would rather be to go after data centers and do this so-called white space optimization, and squeeze out savings over there, while new data centers are coming in place, which I hopefully you can influence that they also go into service, adhering to the greenest and the finest, so at the lowest possible power consumption. So that's a trend that I see. But also look at the whole healthcare sector. They're all happy if we are not showing up at site, but they want us to be their shadow, and from remote make sure that these 24/7 facilities are flawlessly running. Again, it promoted connectivity, it promoted digital services, and it will be, we will get out of the crisis better and stronger. And look, it's also technologies to convert normal patient rooms into isolation rooms. If you do an energy saving project in a hospital, it's not only about that. The side effect is you can control room pressurization, and then you have a dual use of your otherwise normal patient room. You can also use it as an isolation facility. So we overall also increase the business case, the outlets, the opportunities for the hospital. So last but not least, I see also a strong rise in the shift of load on the district cooling plants. All of us probably have seen rising consumption while we were at home, and that reflects to the DCPs. And it's also a market not to be underestimated. It's really, we have lots of opportunities. We just need maybe also the help of Etihad ESCO to kick it on a bit with a stimulus, because as you said, we have the resources. So let's make best use out of it, and the payback is guaranteed. These savings are the best investment we can do right now.
Thank you, Marcus. Raj, we have 1 more minute and then we'll open the floor to the audience for questions. Any new technologies that around pumping or cooling systems that you advise people to use?
Yeah, of course. The connectivity is the key nowadays, and it certainly helped during the pandemic situation. So we have connected Wi-Fi connected pumps and active performance management with asset management and even the service and spare parts management. So that covers the whole, not only the performance, but the asset management and ordering of spare parts and getting the equipment back in operation and reducing the downtime. So that's not the only part of it. There are so many other exciting stuff coming up. We've been busy, going to the next level of innovation. But we've been taking different approach to retrofit these days. And it's certainly helped in the situation. So what we have done is we started small by retrofitting pumps and looking at the flow profile of the pumps. So that gives demand of the building through the various months, winter and summer. So looking at the flow profile, we were able to recommission those pumps at a lower duty points and optimize energy, number one. And we were also able to look at the bigger opportunities, like if you don't need 200 tons of flow rate in that building throughout the year, you've not seen that flow. So why would you replace a 20-year-old chiller of 200 tons to 200? You can go up to 100 or 150. So we've been looking at bigger opportunities through by starting. That approach has really worked well with us in the recent projects. So that's in addition to the smart technology.
Thank you, Mr. Ali Jassim. In 30 seconds, what is your message to the retrofit community?
I'll give the same message I received from the top leaders of this country. Be positive. Positivity should be very high. Be optimistic. We are in a good country. We are in a great country. We will come back stronger. We are back differently. We are working differently.
Thank you very much. Mahyar, I think we have 12 minutes. If you want to take over and start with the questions from the audience.
Sure. Thank you so much, Hassan. Thank you all. Honestly, very, very engaging panel. I was really trying to answer as many of the questions and answers that came from the attendees while also fully listening to everything you guys were saying. So thank you so much for keeping things very engaging. Now, the panel has had quite a bit of time to speak. I want to get the audience involved a little bit as well. I'm going to give the panelists a 30-second break, but stay in your seats, please. Don't go anywhere. And we're going to put up a quick poll for the attendees to answer, please. This is a simple question, really. We would like to get your response on how long you think it's going to take for the market, really for buildings, to be back at 100% capacity. I think the poll will be going up. There you go. So I'll give everyone 20 seconds to answer this before asking any questions to the panel so you don't feel distracted. Seeing a lot of quick responses. And as Mr. Ali said, guys, be positive, attendees, as well as everyone else. So getting some very mixed responses here, it seems. Well, we'll give you 5 more seconds and then we'll jump into the first couple of questions. There we go. We can pop up the results in just a second. Essentially, very, very tight race. I think most people are expecting things to take a bit longer in the long run. It remains to be seen, but I do actually want to move things a little further away to a different direction. One of the questions that we got from Mr. Yusuf, and I think this is a really interesting one, is the general market dynamics have always been focused on commercial buildings, of course, because commercial buildings take in a lot more energy. But as Hassan mentioned just a few minutes ago, residential buildings are becoming much more commonly used because people are working from home. And obviously, as we do move back into the office space, there's still going to be a sort of, let's say, gap between where we are now and when we're going to be fully back in the market. So to get Graham in first, do you think there's going to be any more sort of regulations, anything else that's going into promoting residential energy savings, even maybe solar panels? I do know that Dubai Supreme Council of Energy had put some stuff out in the past, but please do share your thoughts as well on the residential side of things.
I'm not sure about direct regulation, but I do think that you can see from the last few months how residential consumption will have risen, and one can imagine a sort of an enduring impact of that with more home working. Now, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, because some of that could be about what the individual householder does in order to sort of optimize their consumption and their bill. And there is a challenge, I think, to translate that into, for centrally air-conditioned buildings, projects which are about delivering lower cost to the building as a whole. So I do see the opportunity, and as has already been said, I mean, I think it's currently the case that energy or utility costs are about 50% of service charges. Those are figures from DLD. So that proportion might be rising, and service charges becoming a high proportion of rent. So there's an existing really quite strong commercial impetus. I'd say the challenge for the ESCOs is to reach the right person and pull the right lever to get a retrofit project in a building which has got, typically these buildings have diverse ownership. Or many of them have diverse ownership. So the opportunity is definitely there, and the opportunity may well be there in terms of smart home technologies as well, for the individual who is thinking about, well, why am I paying quite so much for my DWA bill, and how much of that can I influence through the adoption of technology or other measures within the home.
Perfect. You touched on quite a few good things that I actually want to expand on and move the question to Mr. Ali Jassim. So. Obviously, Etihad ESCO's focus is largely on the biggest projects, being a super ESCO. Where do you think there's any scope, let's say, based on this question and the general scope of things, for you to also look into some of the large scale developments and potentially influence some of the smaller level residential retrofits that might be coming in the coming years? Do you feel that that's at all a possibility, or what are your thoughts?
Thank you, Mayar. We are doing that already. And yesterday, I was in I would say, team meeting group. We were looking at residential solutions. I can't say much about it because it's a DWA solution, and public will see it before end of the year. It will be live on DWA website. But I can share more technical details because it is their project. I was just being a consultant and as an Etihad ESCO who implemented 2 residential projects. One was in Hatta back in 2018, 500 villas. And in 2019, we did 5,000 villas where we did solar, and we changed the lights and the water aerators. So we have experience on the ground in implementing such projects. So I was with them on the line as they were taking my feedback in terms of how to execute the project and so on, so on, so. But it is a DWA initiative that will be announced before end of the year, hopefully, and it will touch all residential villas and how they can go about it, and it will explain to them step-by-step procedures how to go, and of course it will be
I think we might have lost the connection with Mr. Ali. It seems so. While he tries to reconnect, I can move on to the next question, no problem at all, and hopefully he'll be able to join us in a second. Mr. Rajmahan, we have a specific question for you. You mentioned starting with low capex projects to sort of get some insights into the bigger projects as you go and to see some long-term paybacks. Can you expand on that? Can you tell us what kind of payback building owners and project owners can expect in the long term?
Well, yes, the payback has always been less than 2 years, and we have had many cases where the payback has been less than 14 months, starting with the low capex projects. So as I mentioned, one example is the replaced with the latest demand-based digital control smart pumps, backed up by active performance management and asset management capabilities. So what it does is, first of all, it's a small capex when you just replace a few pumps, and it starts performing day one because it has sensorless control technology, and you don't need to install sensors out in the building in the right positions and so on. So it's a ready-to-go solution, and what it does to the building is it provides a complete profile flow profile of the building to have a visibility of where opportunity to have a better control solution over the complete plant or replacement of inefficient equipment or over-designed equipment, which savings and a bigger capex investment. So the approach has been very successful. In fact, we've been exceeding the energy savings commitments that we have provided. One of the chocolate factories in Dubai, we went in and replaced a couple of pumps there to start with a simple retrofit. We estimated a 68% energy savings, and it turned out to be 90% savings consistently through last 6 months. So yeah, and we are continuously monitoring that to see the next level of opportunities in the building.
Great.
I hope that answers the question.
It does fully. Thank you so much, Raj. Now we are running short in time, but I do want to get one more poll and a couple more questions out. So bear with us, guys. We will run maybe 5-10 minutes past the timer. One focus that we were really looking at for the Retrofit Tech event, which Mr. Ali did mention again, and we do hope to see everyone who's on the panel, everyone in the attendees with you this September or October in the physical event. But one thing that we were really talking about a lot, that we were really looking to focus on a lot more, was renewable energy. We were looking at solar and general renewable energy integration with large-scale buildings, and even to some degree with residential buildings and other types of buildings like desalination plants that we had a case study for. So we have a quick poll that we can put up now. I want to get the audience's feedback on this as well. What do you think, how long do you think actually it's going to take us to go back to a world where we'll actually be able to reintegrate renewables and solar energy? I'll give everyone a few seconds to answer this poll as well, and then we'll move on to the final couple of questions. All right, we'll give you 5 more seconds, and then I'm going to put up the results. We're getting some very interesting responses. All right, we can pull off the poll and show everyone the results now. So the majority of respondents are saying 3 to 5 years. I really would have loved to have asked this question 6 months to a year ago and seen what kind of difference we would have been. But from some of the feedback that we were getting early on, at least from our side, we were getting much more positive responses. So Marcus, I would love to get you involved in this, both on a large scale and small scale. What are your thoughts on this answer? Do you think 3 to 5 years is accurate? Do you think maybe with the technology moving forward, we'll be able to do these things a little quicker?
I think we have to do it quicker, yeah.
Do you want to expand on that, or?
Not really. Maybe Graham, if you would like to.
Well, I'm sure as a supplier, Marcus would always like things to be done quicker. The way I interpreted the answers to that poll was 75% of people thought that it would be done within 5 years. So only 25% had this going out to beyond 5 years. I think if we got the majority of public buildings in Dubai with some form of renewables integrated within that timescale, that would be, for me, that would be a pretty big achievement. And of course, we are seeing rapid uptake in the private sector as well. So that's not as that's the only part of the market. So I would, from my perspective, as somebody who doesn't sell solar panels, I would see that as quite a positive market outlook. But I appreciate if you're Siemens and you want more now or sooner.
Fair enough. Another question that we had specifically for Hassan, as you mentioned, you were doing some trainings with Tarshid, with some of the big players in the market regarding CEM. What do you think is next, as sort of talking about the digital aspects of everything that we do with energy efficiency and retrofitting, but really, where do you see the market from your perspective, both as a consultant, obviously, who's working on the projects, and as someone who's a part of Ashray Falcon? What do you think is next in the market as a whole?
I think there will be more focus on the people. So there will be projects in general, whether it's new construction or retrofitting, will take the human factor to a higher grade than it was being done previously. So health and safety, especially indoor environmental quality, and that's not only looking at indoor air quality, but looking also at all the sensory elements, so sound, indoor air quality, lighting, all these elements that affect your body will be looked at. And this is that the whole, let's say, the green movement is moving towards that at the moment. So you have new standards like WELL and all that. I see it also in retrofit projects. One of the main issues that always happen and all conflicts between the ESCO and the client is the thermal comfort. So they go into a contract mentioning that temperature should be 24 degrees C. The client doesn't really understand technical terms. 24 degrees C, he thinks, yeah, it's good. He sees it on the DEWA billboard saying, yes, put it at 24 degrees C. But it really depends on the way that the building is designed. If you have a huge window to ratio and you're sitting next to that glass and a thermostat at the end of the room saying 24, it doesn't mean that where you're sitting is 24 as well. And this is rarely tackled by ESCOs because they don't really go in too deep into the buildings. They will just look at the roofs and the machine rooms and not really integrate their work with the way the building is designed and is being operated. So I think in future, this element is very crucial to be integrated within the way that retrofit is happening. Now, in terms of business, I see that some hotels, from a hospitality point of view, they put on hold some of their projects, but I think within a few months that will restart. As we mentioned before, residential area is very prominent. I mean, nowadays we have a 10% discount from DEWA, but still the bills are pretty high and they are increasing, and it's a big market. So residential, it's not gonna drop down. Everybody has to go to their homes anyway. So that market is still there, will always be there. In terms of commercial and offices, I think new solutions, integrating the requirements of the new way of doing business, looking at more efficient data transmission, data centers within the building itself or within data centers, looking at indoor air quality equipment. A lot of people now are buying air purifiers. I personally bought one and I keep it almost with me wherever I go. And that actually would help in coping with pathogens and all that. So I see this is where the industry is going to. And I think in the UAE, in the GCC, energy will always, market will continue growing, although it's not going to be at the same, let's say, acceleration. It might decelerate, but it will still be growing because the energy costs and probably will keep on increasing. So probably in Abu Dhabi, maybe, I don't know, in a few years, maybe in 10 years, I'm not really sure. But the prices that are at 0.2 kilowatt dirhams per kilowatt hour might increase, and this will drive the business further. And to be honest with you, with retrofit business, the main driver or one of the biggest drivers is the tariff. And I don't see the tariffs reducing. I think they will be increasing, and this is why the business will keep on growing.
Great. Very, very comprehensive, but I think you touched on everything that anyone would be considering moving forward. What I would say, I will have one last question for Marcus. I think that's a great place for you to expand if you would. We talked about the people, we talked about the sort of procedures, we talked about the vision. Where do you think the technology will go forward? We saw some exciting stuff from Ceres that I think I shared with everyone who's speaking today with, you know, the multi-layer solar panels. There's some exciting stuff happening in IoT across the board. What do you think the technology will move us now, Marcus? If you have any insights, please do share.
I mean, we are, as we speak, in exactly that situation that we need to enable a safe return of our employees to the offices and also give them a very good feeling and confidence that we have done the level best to keep the indoor air quality and hygiene at the top level. So what we are using is actually a solution. It's an app. It's called Comfy, which basically allows you the desk booking, but also limits the ratio of people that are coming. It monitors social distancing. It would actually allow to check which people were in which floor, which place at which time. And it helps us to communicate with the staff. It's the platform we use, and that's paired with IoT sensors. And if you implement that, all of this complements actually also energy savings, because once you have the sensors and you know presence of people, or in addition, you might also do asset tagging with the same technology. It all links back to data being more available, and with that data, we can switch the lights, we can forecast the demand in the building, and we actually lead over to energy savings. But now we have a complete different set of requirements as well. We need to change the buildings into contactless buildings. We don't want to press a lift button. We don't want to press a light button. So anyhow, most of our buildings will have a visit to retrofit some of those mandatory changes, right? And my appeal is, it doesn't make much commercial sense if you send someone in just to change the lift buttons or just to change any kind of readers, doorknobs into contactless solutions. The best way forward would actually be through energy savings project, because then the whole show pays for itself, and it's a remarkable project overall. So lots of activities. We just need a bit of a kick or a stimulus to get going. The demand is there, the solutions are there, it will pay back, but someone needs to make the first step. And there is, again, my appeal, government or super ESCOs need to get the industry rolling. And I think we are there for a pretty bright future. Yeah.
Great. Thankfully, Mr. Ali was able to join us again, just in time for the final words. You did have a few final words just a few minutes ago regarding staying positive. I didn't really get the chance to ask you a few of the questions, but if you have anything else, just to summarize at the end, obviously, we did mention that we hope to see everyone here at the Retrofit Tech Summer later in the year. If you have any thoughts on that as well, please let us know, Mr. Ali, and then we can wrap up from there. If you can just make sure your mic is unmuted as well. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you go.
Sorry, coming back to a meeting nowadays, it's like traveling. I'm sorry, I lost you for a while. I just want to answer some of our questions raised. Mr. George, I'm happy to answer your question. Retrofit Tech, inshallah, will be in September. We look forward to it being in person. We live in this country. You see the every day that the numbers are decreasing of the pandemic, and the measures are being eased and lifted on a daily basis. We look forward to having Retrofit Tech in September in person, and I promise, inshallah, our our duty and our responsibility as Ittihad ESCO is to help our partners be in a very healthy financial condition. So that's something we will drive for you. For the question from Adam, air curtains, yes, it can be considered as an energy saving. And if you can make the air curtain electronic with a timer, it will be an excellent, and we will support you for that. Because if you leave it to the customer that he comes manually, left the air curtain on, then yes, it is an energy saving, but it has to be on a timely frame. For Maaz active refrigerant additives, yes, we had a partner, and we look at all types of ECMs and retrofitting, and nothing is impossible. Going back on the residential, DEWA will launch the initiative before end of the year, and it will have a step-by-step on the website how the customer can engage himself. He doesn't need a consultant to do that. For a question from Sumit, replacement of chillers with the VRF, everything is possible. Yes, we look at all solutions. We have more than 300 ECMs and solutions for the customers. And yes, we look at all possible solutions. For Amjad, the last question, Saudi market, yes, Ittihad Energy International is in Saudi, and we are looking at Saudi market. Of course, Saudi market is a bit different than the UAE market, but we will be working. Hopefully, we will have something rolled out, and you can partner with Ittihad Energy Solution in Saudi and work with us as a partner, contractor, and subcontractor. I hope I answered all your questions. And there is one last question. I hope I'm not. Muhammad Atif, how likely is to have district cooling connecting to villas? We are also looking at these opportunities, provided that it is in a developed area where lots of villas are there, not individual villas, community-wise, area-wise. I thank all the panelists. Also, I'm proud to be among such experts and experienced people. And sorry for taking a bit of time. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mahir, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ali. Of course, again, thank you all of you for joining us, to the phenomenal panel, to all the attendees. Sorry we ran a bit over time, but I think this was just too good of a conversation to cut short in the hour. Maybe next time we'll aim for an hour and a half, 2 hours even, to have everyone with us. So without further ado, I want to thank everyone from the panel. Mr. Ali Al-Jassim from Ittihad ESCO, thank you so very much for joining us today. Mr. Graham Sims from RSB Dubai, thank you as well so much for joining us. Marcus Stroma from Siemens, thank you so much for joining us today. Mr. Rajmohan Govindarjan from Armstrong Fluid Technology. And of course, our phenomenal moderator for the day, Hassan Yunus, who we definitely will have with us again in the near future. Thank you so much, Hassan. Hope to see you soon. For all the attendees, that favor that I mentioned in the very beginning, if you could just take 1 minute once this is done to go over the final post-webinar survey, answer those quick questions, it will go a long way in helping us ensure that we can give you a really good service and good experience for the next edition. Of course, we do have a webinar next week for the Saudi market and the construction sector under the Saudi Build Exhibition portfolio. More on that in just 1 second. And finally, we will be having other retrofit tech series of webinars for our other localities in Saudi Arabia, Ras Al Khaimah, and across the board. So do join us for that. If you're interested in taking part in those, please let us know. With that, thank you so much from us at IFB Group. Hope to see you soon.